Hello and thanks for joining the first edition of Journalists Hangout this week. I am Kemi Foladiemo. We have 60 more days, that's about 2 months, to the conduct of the 2019 elections in Nigeria. And as each passing day brings us closer to the all-important polls, we urge you to keep a date with us for in-depth information and analysis. Today on the program, Vice President Osinbajo, Obi and 3 others lock horns in epic debate. Kaduna Governor El-Rufai accuses Dunamis pastor Paul Enenche of incitement, vows to sue him. Later on the show, Nigerian army lifts UNICEF suspension as Boko Haram faction attacks Gudumbali again. I'll be hanging out with Babajide Kolade Otitoju as well as Chris Kehinde Umandu and Wale Adeoye. Journalist Hangout starts now. The culture of election debate has for long become an integral part of democratic process in advanced democracies. Ahead of the 2019 elections here in Nigeria, it appears the tradition has come to stay, following an epic debate involving vice presidential candidates of 5 political parties last Friday. Nigeria's Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo of the All Progressives Congress, Peter Obi of the People's Democratic Party, and 3 others from ACPN, ANN, and YPP tangled on issues like corruption, economy, insecurity, and poverty. The debate was organized by the Nigerian Elections Debate Group and the Broadcasting Organization of Nigeria. That debate of Friday last week still elicits intense reactions from many. Well, let's begin the conversation here with Babajide. What lessons would you pick from Friday's debate?
Yeah, so many lessons. One of the lessons that really affects the candidates of the APC and the candidates of the PDP. For the candidate of the PDP, I enjoyed his energy. He did quite well in that debate, maybe because business and economy has always been his forte. He did very well against the vice president in that regard. He had a good grasp of what the problems are. And significantly, he also didn't go to the debate with any sheet of paper, unlike the vice president who had his iPad. But he goofed. He goofed in a number of areas because when he was reading out those statistics, you got the feeling that he wanted, the point that he wanted to make was clear, but those statistics were not accurate. So maybe he should have had maybe a sheet of paper where he would have written those things. Where he wanted to talk about the poverty rates in Nigeria, he should have actually written it somewhere. He knew that the debate would lead him to talk about poverty. Right. But he ended up given a falsified figure. Where he wanted to talk about the number of cars in circulation in Nigeria, he said,
2 million.
2 million. Whereas we have, on the average, about 12 million cars in Nigeria. About 5 million or so of them actually commercial cars. Mm-hmm. And he went on even the issue of foreign direct investment. He made the point. Under Goodluck Jonathan, we had far greater foreign direct investment into our country, more than even during the Obasanjo years, more than we have at the moment. Okay. But again, Obi did not get his stats right because he clearly overhyped the entire situation, because the foreign direct investment that came into Nigeria was just about $3.2 billion at the time, but he was talking about 40 something. So at the end of the day, the good points that he sought to make, those inaccuracies clearly diminish the value of his message. And the same thing for the vice president. The vice president was clearly out to show that yes, we generate so much electricity at this time, and was talking about on the average 7,000 megawatts. We do not generate 7,000 megawatts on the average. We reached a threshold that was even in terms of the transmission, we reached a threshold of 5,222. But we have the potential. The potential is there to even generate up to 8,000 megawatts. That is the point that I should make. That we can, because we have expanded the grid, we have freshened up the grid, we can actually generate up
much
to 8,000
than
megawatts.
we're getting.
But he went on to say now we generate 7,000. No.
Okay.
You cannot, you can't say that. And then he also talked about rice production. I think also that the consumption of local rice in Nigeria, the rate of consumption is highly exaggerated. Most Nigerians still consume imported rice, especially in the urban centers. Not just even in the urban centers. If you travel to the north, if you go to the communities close to the border, you see clearly that there's so much smuggling of rice through our land borders because we've not been able to tighten that area. Yes, the CBI no longer commits the kind of money that it used to commit to importation of rice, but so many bags of rice still get into our country.
In circulation in the country.
If I ask you now, jollof rice, if you eat jollof rice anywhere,
can you tell?
They use local rice to do jollof rice.
Right.
When you buy rice in the hotels and the big eateries, and
indeed,
is it local rice?
Well, the point has been made. The point has been made because where the vice president said, 90%, that the government has been able to cut down importation of rice by 90%. Okay, well, Babajide has started with inconsistencies now in the output of what the two major contenders made on Friday. But Wale, what's your observation?
Well, I think, to be very fair to two of them, the two of them are very brilliant people. And I think they have the potential to lead this country even as presidents of the country. So I think we can say that the two parties have come out with very brilliant individuals who spoke from experience. One was the Commissioner for Justice in Lagos for 8 years and the Vice President for 3 years. So they have a good understanding of the problems. But beyond rhetorics, like Babajide has said, I think there are certain statements made by Peter Obi that could send very wrong signals. For instance, when he was talking about leaving the shop and chasing the thieves, that might give unintended impression that corruption, should be treated as, with kid gloves. That is not a fundamental problem. Because he kept on hammering on the economy. But behind the economy, he said corruption is not an economic policy. But to me, corruption is an economic and also a political policy. Right. It could send very wrong signal that, his government is more concerned about economy than, fighting corruption. Yeah. And I think when you are talking about the economy, it's not giving. When you are talking about small and medium scale, there are certain incentives that must be put in place before you can grow the economy in terms of small scale, and that is electricity. So we are trying to compare Nigeria with China and all that without also linking into with, the challenges that we have here, which I think mainly is electricity. And we can blame this partly on what happened in 2013 when they sold the discos, to some people. And what we are seeing now shows that, they have a lot of work to do to prove that they are competent. So you can't be talking about small-scale industry, what's going on in China, without also talking about, certain conditions, which are also historical. It goes beyond the past 3 years. These problems of electricity have been there for a very long time. So, but I think on the average, they are very brilliant people.
And you were impressed?
I was impressed by the two of them.
Right.
And I also think of the question of, job unemployment rate. He gave a very wrong figure.
Okay.
Talking about 42%.
We will go, we will talk about, all those key issues that that the ladies and gentlemen, raised. But then let me get your own findings now. Of course, both gentlemen here have talked about the first two or the two major contenders there. But then about the other three.
That's, yes, exactly. That's where I'd wanted to talk about. Right. The two, expectedly, I don't think they perform below expectation. Ordinarily, you would expect a professor of law to be conversant and to be eloquent in his delivery. You expect someone who is, give and take, a historian or economist like P2B that have run several multinational companies, and also to be very, very good in economy and other political related issues. And so it's given that definitely they did a human job. I'm not going to repeat what some of my colleagues have already said.
Right.
Yes. Let's look at the other three vice presidential candidates. Personally, I was impressed with one of them. I wouldn't want to go to the particular, but one of the females, her delivery was good. So just about 36 years. The young party. Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Mogalu's running.
Yes,
right.
The lady, I was impressed. Okay, you will see the way she was marshalling at her point, and even though she wasn't saying much, but you know that she has an idea. And when you look at people like that, then I think that the idea behind the not too young to run, she's a good example of what that should be, and I'm impressed. The other two, well, they are neither here nor there. I wouldn't want to put down anybody. But my own concern also is the system of selecting who appeared on the podium. Okay, we have close to, I'm sure, over 50 or thereabouts participating. And when I read the criteria used by Bond to select those, that I wasn't impressed. And some people already started reading some political undertone to it and the rest of them. But I think what I would have expected, I hope that's what happened, is that there should be about 3 segments of that debate. It doesn't have to end with just these 5. There should be at least 3 segments of.
So all parties are covered?
Yes, at least we should be able to cover about major one, about 50% of the parties, so that we can also, because that was a very, very big platform for them to be able to showcase what most of them don't have the resources to be able to advertise themselves. They don't have the opportunity to be able to tell Nigerians what they can do. That is the only platform that you can be able to reach as wide. Yes, so I think, so my own take on that is that I think they should be able to, the organizers should be able to up that game and make sure that we have more presidential, and because if that's what you get, that also means that we're only going to have 5 presidential candidates.
Absolutely,
so
absolutely, and that's what Nigerians are expecting now. 5. But then let me run that idea along with Babajide. What do you think? On another hand, what I also gathered was people are saying, why don't you make it between PDP, APC, and then one candidate will represent all the other parties that will be selected by a form of a poll online. What do you think of that as against Chris's idea?
I don't think it should be wise to do that. Okay. Don't also forget that the NBC code that we subscribe to is against that.
Even during coverage.
Every political party should have a voice. Even when we organized the debate in Osun State, we couldn't put all the parties on the podium. But what we did was that we provided opportunities through our different windows for the candidates of other parties to come and say, look, this is what I want to do for the people. This is one. And at the end of the day, they were all happy.
So nobody would say...
nobody will go to court. Nobody will report you to the regulator that you refuse to give them a voice. So it is very important to be conscious of this. I would have loved a situation in which the candidate of the APC and the candidate of the PDP faced each other. Just the same way that you have a Donald Trump face Hillary Clinton. You know, it will make for an explosive debate. And some of the things that some of the candidates got away with, because I remember Obi on one occasion when the VP said something, he was even raising up his hand. He wanted to be given an opportunity to counter him immediately. But he didn't get the opportunity because of the way the debate was structured.
Rotating.
Yes,
Right.
you know, he didn't get the opportunity of a follow-up. And then, of course, if there were just two of them, the VP or even OB, as the case may be, could have been able to say, look, you didn't get your facts right. For example, where OB said that every 6% of of 180 million Nigerians slip into poverty every minute. The VP should have been able to say, no,
Yes.
this statistics is staggering. It's just not possible. Because look, if it were possible, that means in one day, we could all even slip into poverty. How many are we? So, because 6% of 180 million is 10.8.
Yeah.
So if 10.8 million Nigerians slip into poverty every minute, then we are in trouble. That means God simply created us for us to be in
Now within
poverty.
24 hours, everybody.
So, but you see,
Within 24 hours,
if it
that's
was
it.
simply between both men, honestly, we would have enjoyed the debate a lot more. And but you have to look at the laws of the country. You have to look at the NBC code. We are broadcasters, and we must not go against the NBC code. In fact, what we had, you must explain how you ended up with the people that you have chosen. And we did that in the case of the Osun election because we conducted a poll and people voted. And then we got people to go around and see who had the most posters, all kinds of criteria, just to be able to say, okay, these are the 5 people or 6
defend
people.
your position.
Yes,
Right.
because you must come up with something. When someone raises an alarm that, look, you deliberately shut me out. I know that someone like Showore, for example, will have loved to be in that
Oh,
debate.
sure.
But was left out. Right.
I anchored the celebration debate, and he was there. I still remember what he did with the young woman, Eunice. You know, it was really, really explosive. And all the young people, in fact, it became almost uncontrollable for me at a point. And I'm like, what's going on? So you can imagine if you had
Vice President of
Who's been revving to debate
Yeah.
along with
yes,
the
you can
president?
imagine if you had someone like him, you know, around those guys. He will the lethargy that some of them demonstrated. He will have been able to rouse them from sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let's look at the nitty-gritty now of key issues that were raised. Wale, you've already preempted, you know, by talking about, you know, some arguments that Peter Obi and the Vice President made. We could talk about the subsidy issue now, which really, you know, took on various levels now. Vice President is saying the subsidy has helped a lot of Nigerians now, and of course, before now, we had been having issues of, is the government really paying subsidy or not? And now, Peter Obi also, you know, made sure he countered the Vice President on that issue, saying, why don't we end the rain? And, you know, what do you make of this?
Well, I think to be realistic, subsidy is not one thing you can fix in one day. Even if a new government comes in next year, unless we are deluding ourselves,
Right.
it's not rocket science, because you have debts, you know, brought over that you've got to settle legally. And if you want to build new refineries, it will definitely take you weeks, months, or possibly years.
Yes.
And I think the Vice President was making a point that every government in the world has one kind of subsidy regime or the other. And I don't think the PDP can argue that subsidies should be removed, because in actual fact, for about 16 years, they ran the subsidy regime. So they can't tell us that if they come in next year, then there will be no subsidy any longer. Right. I think the point should be a transparent way of dealing with, addressing subsidy, and also to have a long-term plan to eliminate subsidy. But it's going to be gradual. Anybody that is saying that if I come to power, we eliminate subsidy, it's just not realistic.
Well, Chris, has the incumbent government been transparent enough as regards, you know, all subsidy claims, payments, when Nigerians are concerned? What's your take?
Well, back to the debate, I expected, when the issue of subsidy was raised, I expected Mr. Obi to have raised some fundamental issues on that, because he could have also tackled the Vice President on that issue, because the APC government, in fact, the president actually, in the course of before the election was saying there was nothing like subsidy. If you listen to it,
It's
a wizard. He said, you understand what I'm saying? He said it. He said, what is something? Somebody should come forward and show me and tell who is subsidizing. So,
and then out came the revelations.
That's just it. So bad. This government, when they come, it is always, it's just like the game of football, which Bajide and I love so much. There was a time we were talking about it. When you are outside and watching as a spectator, it is very easy for you to analyze football. You will know coach is supposed to be there. Peter Rufai could have caught that, that kind of stuff. But when you are dropped into the field, you come to realize that. So I think that is the issue here. But back to your question, I think as much as possible they've been as transparent as they can. The issue, you knew what happened. Just some few weeks back, the oil marketers were threatening that they were going to go on strike if part of those subsidy claims were not paid. And I think they were able to arrive at the time. But the main issue, which I expected the vice president to have touched on, or the other presidential candidate, right, which I probably think was a part of the flaws of this debate, is that because if you watch the American presidential debates, each of the contestants has the right to ask the other person a question directly, most often. In fact, that is where the heat comes on.
For the anchor.
Yes, not only the anchor. We base this one on, they will ask questions. The question I would have expected one of the vice presidential candidates to have asked, what plan do you have for the refineries to work? Yeah. We've had 3 years. How come we're importing so many? You understand what I'm trying to say? We're importing so many, so much product that at the end of it all, our refineries, every time we have been talking about. In fact, part of the campaign of the APC then was that the turnaround maintenance culture of the PDP government was not working, that it was an avenue to siphon money. What has happened? Have we added one single refinery again since then? So those are the kind of challenges. So I think in the next debate, which probably will be the presidential, I don't know whether we'll have another vice presidential, candidates should be asked or should be allowed to ask counter questions. Or even the audience. Yeah. You can even ask the audience. Because you can regulate it in a way. There used to be town hall meetings. If you have look at some of those town hall meetings in the United States, people have the opportunity to ask questions. And I think that's
all right. I'd like to have Babajide's take now, even as we gradually round off this segment of the program. Let me have your take on this argument. Where it leaves the federal government, the Buhari administration.
I mean the subsidy thing.
The subsidy claim.
Yeah, subsidy exists. In 2014, 2015, when the president was saying who is subsidizing who, I was really disappointed, because there is limits to politics. I knew it was just politics at play. And nobody, if you remove subsidy today, if this government removes subsidy, it will not be re-elected. It will collapse. I'm very sure of that. No matter how popular he is,
it will not.
If he removes subsidy today, he knows he will not be re-elected. Because, as I always say, petrol is a security product. It's not just any product that you can handle with levity. It will lead, in fact, the level of inflation that we face today is the result of the increase in petroleum prices, because it now led to high transport costs, which drove up the prices of goods and services, and even clothes that we wear. Because once you touch transport costs, everything else, our children who are going to school, the drivers come to take them to school, they added to the school fees, because they have to take care of the transport element in the whole school fees thing. So petrol is not something that you treat with levity. The subsidy regime is there. The only thing that Katiku and the rest of them have done is to change the name, call it all sorts of funny names. You will never hear Katiku call it subsidy. You can call it trading loss. All sorts of funny names they have they've called it, so that they are not hard saying subsidy, because they told us it didn't exist. But what happens is that the NNPC manages from its earnings to sort out the matter of subsidy, to pay for subsidy. The vice president said some time ago, was it the vice president that said, it is not that the government doesn't take care of subsidy, that doesn't pay subsidy, that is the NNPC. But the NNPC belongs to government.
Right.
So there's no way we can escape this. Subsidy exists.
Right.
And just as my brother Wale said, No regime will come in and say, oh, by fiat we are going to remove subsidy. If you do that, you walk into a climate of hate. Nigerians will fight you. Goodluck Jonathan began to lose popularity the moment he increased fuel prices. The goodwill that he had across the country from the 2011 election, he frittered by that action.
Well, all eyes now pan gradually now to the January date now. We'll see how, and we know that this topic will be revisited. We'll wait and see how the presidential candidates, of course, will...
even organizing
our own
debate.
Right.
We'll have the vice presidential debate and the presidential debate.
Indeed,
the same week.
So much to look forward, to in the new year. We'll see how all these issues will be handled. But when we return, Kaduna Governor El-Rufai accuses Dunamis pastor Paul Enenche of incitement, vows to sue him. What's that all about? Stay with us for analysis. All right, welcome back to the program, Journalist Hangout. Let's run along now because of time. Many scholars have theorized about the need for religion and politics to exist in parallel relationship. In practice, though, a thin line continues to separate the two, such that one is impinging on the other. Many Nigerians have raised concern about the need for clergymen to stay off politics. In Kaduna State, politics and religion we see are about to clash over threat by Governor Malam Nasir El-Rufai to sue the senior pastor of Dunamis International Gospel Center, Paul Enenche, over alleged incitement. Pastor Enenche had alleged in a video clip that the governor knew about the abduction and death of a traditional ruler in the state. But Governor El-Rufai reacted, saying he has filed a complaint to the Inspector General of Police in an attempt to bring the pastor to Kaduna for trial. And of course, Wale, I want to begin with you now. I'm particular about the word Governor El-Rufai is using, the incitement he's alleging now on the part of Pastor Enenche. What is your understanding, or what is your reaction to this, all that's ensuing now?
Well, religious leaders occupy a very important position, especially Paul Enenche, who started his church in 1996. And has one of the biggest auditorium in this country with almost about 100,000 followers, at least people that attend that church. So it means that he needs to be very careful what he says. We recognize the freedom of speech, but we also recognize the limit that we must be careful not to impugn on the character of people, especially when there is no hard evidence. He claimed that somebody told him that the governor of Kaduna State knew about the death of the traditional ruler of Adara Shifdom. He was kidnapped and then later killed. And that the governor actually invited him prior, his death. But the governor denied that such a thing did not happen. And I felt going to YouTube to speak, to claim with some level of authority, I think it was morally wrong, because even when you have your evidence, you still need to prove it. And we also have to be very careful about the implication of such, a notable leader making such a statement. They can stir up religious conflict. They can stir up violence, especially in a state where there has been cases of religious intolerance. So, but I think what the governor has done is right. It's recognized within the democratic space.
So you agree that the person of the governor was defamed, so to speak?
I think it was wrong for the pastor to have made that statement.
Okay.
That.
Right.
But I'm also not impressed by the governor saying that he will bring him to Kaduna to try, as if Kaduna is a place where he has control over institutions. I mean, it's a pastor that practices in Abuja. Right. So if they want to,
and the
try
alleged crime,
there are courts, so it should be.
If
indeed,
also
you want to bring him to Abuja,
all right.
Show some.
That's if indeed it is established that a crime has been committed. Chris, what's your take? Is Pastor Enenche, did he fall out of line, so to speak?
Yes, to a large extent. For us journalists, our weapon is the Bible, the pen. For pastors, clergymen, and them, their own weapon is the use of mouth. Okay? And what has happened is that...
and their anointing.
and their anointing. So the probability personally, I've watched several times, especially Pastor Nature, so many times. I've seen several times where he had made a lot of statements on the pulpit, when he's preaching, when he's talking. I knew what he was saying during the Benue crisis, during the other crisis and the rest of them. And if you watch some of those clips, it can be very exciting. Okay? And pastors, to some people, are next to God. In fact, I will tell you that some people respect their pastors and fear their pastor more than God. If their pastors say do this, they will do it. Even when the Bible says anything to the contrary. I know some women that will take the advice of their pastor rather than that of their husbands. So that is how powerful they are. And I think so. When you make certain insertions and the rest of it, one has to be very, very careful. But let us also look at it from the other point. These are not issues that, I think there could have been a more amicable way of resolving these issues. My problem has always been that, why is it always Governor El-Rufai? That is always my problem. Because, look at it, let us be very sincere. Governor El-Rufai, more than any other governor, has locked up more journalists in this country, more than any other governor. If you make any statement, I give him that right. It is his right to do that and not to resort to violence. The fact that he uses the court, to me, is a lie. But most often than not, I don't think that is everything that one has to be able to. He himself, and let's be realistic now, Governor El-Rufai had made several inciting statements in the past. Either through his tweets, some of the statements, go back.
As governor?
Yes,
even
before he became governor.
Right.
So many.
That's true.
That is very, very true. So he who goes around gathering ant-infested firewoods invites the lizard for feast. So I think he should be able, even as a governor, some of the statements he makes at times give some kind of correlation between certain parts of even his state. Some part of the state are not so happy with him with some of the statements he makes at times. Right. So, but I believe that this can be resolved. It doesn't have to tell the IG to bring
Shouldn't have to be a court.
I think it can be. There are better ways of, but Pastor Nature should be very careful. That is
all right, now, all eyes point to you, Babajide. Now that we come to the test of incitement, inciting words, now who should be the judge? I saw the video, however, I didn't get to the point where and if the Pastor Enenche said that the traditional ruler was killed now, or if he accused the governor of outrightly, authorizing the murder of this ruler now. But then he said, Pastor Enenche said, he was kidnapped and eventually murdered along with some of his aides right after he met with Governor El-Rufai. So who should be the judge now? Is the governor the right person to be the judge of whether his person was defamed?
Yeah, but the governor said he did not invite him.
Okay.
That there was no such meeting, and that he does not have to invite
any traditional ruler.
He said he did not invite him. So the Pastor Enenche, as we said earlier, has to be careful. I saw one clip too where he was swearing at the Nigerian leadership, swearing at the government of the day. I don't think that pastors should abuse the privilege that they have. I have my problems with El-Rufai, no doubt about it, but it is not in all cases that I disagree with him. When he had his issues with Dogara, I supported him. When he had his issues with teachers, I supported him. When he had to let some chiefs go just to save money for the local councils in Kaduna, I supported him. He's the first governor to domesticate the TSA. I supported him. So those who support him, those who are rabidly loyal to him, they do not remember these things, that on some occasions I have had to support him. But where he is wrong, even if he has a billion supporters, we will tell him that he's wrong.
Right.
That is the way some of us are.
exactly.
Whether you blackmail us or not, we will say the truth. Where El-Rufai is wrong, we will tell him he's wrong. He's not too big to be corrected. People bigger than him, we tell them the truth. So this is the thing. El-Rufai has a good case.
In this case?
Yes.
Okay.
If indeed the pastor said those things, then the pastor may have his day in court, because no Nigerian is bigger than our laws. Yes. But El-Rufai can sometimes be unnecessarily emotional by saying that we will bring him to Kaduna to face trial. I mean, he messed a good case up, because report him to the police. Let the police
decide
a charge against a charge of incitement. Because if we incite the people, that's a crime against the state. Let the police file a charge against the pastor. You shouldn't say, oh, you will bring him to Kaduna, because even the issue of jurisdiction can come in.
Yeah.
Was the offense committed in Kaduna? I mean, you should know this. If the offense was not committed
and it can be
in
a
Kaduna,
federal offense.
why are you going to say you are
cited.
bringing him to Kaduna for trial? Of course, they are going to challenge that. But the important thing, this has happened. El-Rufai has a case in saying that people should not go on inciting, pastors and imams should not go on inciting
And
our
he
people to
generalized.
violence.
Right.
I'm not saying that's the source of the killings in Kasuwa Magani, because before now we have people kill one another in Kasuwa Magani. But there's no reason to accuse the governor of a state of having a hand in the kidnapping and eventual murder of a citizen,
Right.
except you have cast iron evidence.
Yeah.
If you do not have cast iron evidence, El-Rufai is extremely stubborn. He will go to great lengths to ensure that.
But what if he has? What if he has? Would we be fair? Would we? Okay, all right.
That's why I use the word accept. Because I'm not ruling anything out. I'm not ruling anything in. I said it's not right to do that, except you have cast iron evidence.
And if this matter gets to court as threatened by the governor, right? We'll wait and see if that will be the order of the day. All right, but then let's talk about the Nigerian army now. The army was criticized last week when it announced suspension of activities of United Nations International Children Emergency Fund, UNICEF, in the northeast over an alleged sabotage in the war against insurgency. But a few hours after a reported attack by Boko Haram elements in Borno State, who disguised as aid workers, broke out. Afterwards, the army revoked its decision, lifting the suspension and following an emergency meeting between the Theatre Command of Operation Lafia Dole and UNICEF representatives. Deputy Director of Public Relations of the Theatre Command, Colonel Onyema Nwachukwu, explained that the global body had been warned to desist from activities inimical to national security. But Boko Haram's faction loyal to the Islamic State in West Africa then attacked Gozobala local government area of Borno State again. The question is, are this all linked one way or the other? But then I would like to say that these are two major issues on its own. Let's begin with the UNICEF angle now. The Nigerian army has, of course, come on to say today now, asking for the closure of Amnesty's office today. So we're seeing the army fighting a lingering war, not only on UNICEF. But what do you make of all this involvement of the army in this?
Well, it's a very serious matter. I was one of some top editors that were invited by the Army Public Relations Department last week. We met with some senior Army officers. It was a program put together by the Public Relations Department of Nigeria Army and also the Army School of Public Relations. Most people don't even know that Army has a School of Public Relations. They do. And one of the issues that were raised, that were discussed, was the issue of fake news. And from what I saw and from what I learned, the army itself is a bit feeling battered, especially by most of the information being circulated, both in the conventional and elsewhere. Most sincerely, after that encounter I had with them, I've had a rethink in some of the things that we publish.
It's been written
Yes, been
about
written and
them.
published on our online platforms. Take, for example, when the last Metete incident happened, and immediately was most of the things there was 100 soldiers have been killed, have been missing, and the rest of them. And I told them point blank, I told them that part of the problem we have is information management by the soldiers, but the army themselves. Because when you don't release information as at when due, then you give room for some kind of people trying to justify some of the things they do. And I also said, if there is no original, there'll be no fake. The word fake came because we have original. So most often than not, the military wait as much as possible. In fact, at times they totally keep quiet. They don't say anything. On the start flying around. But they made me to understand something. They said, the way we look at it is not the way it happens. Most often than not, if such an incident happens, you don't just jump out to start throwing figures. That's on their own part. Why? There's those that are missing in action. There's those that have been, they are dead. There's some that you cannot even account for. So for you to come around and will be a big problem. And secondly, artists is conventional by their statutes and across the globe. Before you announce the death of a soldier, his relations must be informed.
Okay.
So you understand what I'm trying to say? So that has been the issue. And let us not take this part away. We are losing so many soldiers. Today alone, we know how many have been killed. Today, with what's happening. So the best we can do under the circumstances is for us to be able to know how to manage some of it. Right. But back to the international, just say.
Okay, I'll get back to you. But then let's have Wale's take now. The army is fighting a tough war, no doubt. But then taking on UNICEF, now Amnesty, and the whole, of course, the issue with Amnesty has been lingering even before now. But then alleging that UNICEF's training missions and all that could have the infiltration of terrorists, or saying now that UNICEF is even aiding terrorist activities. How founded is this?
Well, I think the army, and the UNICEF are working under very difficult situations. And at times, they might be propelled by anger and take certain decisions without being a bit reflective. Army claimed that UNICEF, training people, using some people for sabotage. Well, the army must have its own evidence. But I think there are 3,000 UNICEF staff working in the Northeast. Many of them are Nigerians. It is not possible that all the 3,000 people are involved in training insurgents or passing on information to them. So what I think is important for the army to do when you are in this kind of situation is not to have a blanket ban. You conduct diligent investigation and then pull the wrong strand out, the wrong cobweb, instead of disrupting the entire network. Because this idea of banning UNICEF that has been operating since 1946, it has a lot of global implication for the Nigerian image. So if you have very concrete evidence against some UNICEF officials that have done certain things wrong, you do your investigation and then you bring out those staff.
On those particular
staff.
Yes,
don't forget that UNICEF also lost a nurse that was killed. In fact, 3 of them were kidnapped, 2 midwives and a nurse. And that woman was killed. One of them, the mother died of trauma. So they are also working under a very difficult situation. So the two organizations need to complement each other. They need to appreciate each other. But the idea of banning UNICEF, I don't think it is the right decision.
And was it even the call of the army to make the decision to even...
So it was good they reversed it,
right.
Almost a few days after that order was given.
Jide, your take?
Yeah. I think that the army took a hasty decision, and I don't think that decision was a good one. You can't ban UNICEF in the way they have done. What they've done sends the wrong signal that they want to continue to perpetrate some crimes against humanity that they think these NGOs are going to expose. Whether we like it or not, those NGOs are doing a good job in the Northeast. Remember the issue of malnutrition. It took Medicine Sans Frontiers to come here and show us the level of malnutrition and deaths in the IDP camps. we discovered that there was even a cemetery attached to an IDP camp in Bama, where children were daily being buried, being killed. And we saw pictures that moved many of us to tears. It was after that expose that everybody really became interested in the welfare of the IDPs. So these are the gory realities that
These
some
agencies.
Nigerians don't want the rest of us to know. I've seen UNICEF staff killed by Boko Haram. When Boko Haram attacked Ran, which was also even still attacked recently, they not only killed soldiers, they also killed aid workers. Aid workers have paid with their lives in the Northeast. It's not only soldiers that have been killed. Teachers, dozens of teachers have been killed in Borno State. In destroying schools, they kill teachers. Dozens of district heads and even Islamic clerics who preach against them have been killed. So soldiers are not the only victims of this war. So when you take a decision, oh, we don't want to see UNICEF, I'm sure that the presidency must have been sufficiently embarrassed. Yeah. That's why they told them to immediately reverse that decision. And then we are told, oh, they've been asked. Because I looked at those allegations. So is UNICEF now that is training terrorists? You want people to believe that kind of story? When you've not come up with evidence? People are not that gullible. Because they will ask questions. The essence of education is to be able to tell yourself that this is not white. So if you put out that kind of information, you must be able to defend it. And if you cannot defend it, the joke will be on you. So for me, there's a lot for the army to do. The army should busy itself with equipping the soldiers sufficiently and coming up with the right strategy. This Gudumbali is the headquarters of Guzamala local government. This year and the last quarter of this year alone, that community has been attacked 3 times. When the governor relocated IDPs, because he felt the place was safe enough, he built houses there, he built hospitals, he built a hall, he built even a kind of guest house for maybe when the president is visiting or something. But they went back and set ablaze all the buildings that the governor erected to show people that, look, the place is not as safe
as we think.
And for them to have gone back there again on Friday, the message that these tourists are sending to the soldiers is that we don't want you to stay here. And there are communities like that. They want to be the ones to control those communities. So let the army busy itself with the work of finishing off these guys. And I also want to appeal to the Nigerian government to do its best to improve the welfare of workers.
Because that is still an issue.
The welfare of soldiers is not simply the welfare of those on the war front alone. Their wives, their families that they leave behind. Go to Ikeja cantonment, for example. Only 2 hours, they ration light, 2 hours in a whole day. Sometimes they could go a whole week, they won't give them light. So the families that they've left behind, they have no means of communicating with loved ones and all that. That can really weigh them down. And there are other things. Commanders on the war front, we are fond of making scapegoats out of commanders in the Northeast. But some of the service chiefs are reluctant to even promote commanders.
Fantastic.
We have Navy. Navy, for example, how many commanders in that zone, because we have a naval component over there. How many commanders have they promoted?
Fantastic points from you. Let's wrap this up now. Now, Jide has taken us to the issue of welfare, key lingering issue. What's your message as we end the show today?
Yes, rightly said. I've always said it on this program. Whenever we hear some amount being branded everywhere, $1 billion was released to the military and the rest of it. My question has always said, I've always asked, the personnel, what is going to them? Because if you buy all the equipment in the world and the personnel that were supposed to manage this equipment and the rest of them are not well taken care of, it affects the psyche. And I've said it, some few days back, some of us saw some video clips of soldiers that were wounded and they were not taken care of, lying around and the rest of them. So most often than not, we should take the welfare of the soldiers it is very, very critical, because that is the only way you can motivate a soldier. Why a military person in the US can give his life for his country is the fact that he knows that if he dies today, his family will be taken care of.
Is that still your message as to why we should have Gudumbali again? And, we don't even know how many soldiers, fell. We understand that it even happened when they were about having their evening meals. So what do you think is needed at this point that needs to be addressed?
Winning a war is not just about weapons. It's also about welfare. In fact, probably welfare is about 40%, because if soldiers are not well motivated.
So the issue for you still remains welfare?
Yeah, it's very critical. And then intelligence gathering is very important for the army, to be able to have enough knowledge about the battle that they are waging.
As it has now been established by all of you, and I'm sure that many Nigerians would agree, but what would be your final take now? How this war can be won with the help of partners? Should the army see Amnesty, UNICEF, and a host of all these agencies who are working on the war front now as partners in this fight?
I am disturbed about the kind of allegations that Amnesty continues to make. I think those allegations are unfounded, largely unfounded, and in some cases downright irresponsible. And it looks like something that they've been recycling over time. I'm really worried about Amnesty. So, but when you talk about UNICEF and the rest of them, I really don't get what the army wants to achieve. So the army cannot be seen to be fighting everybody. You're fighting Amnesty, you're fighting this, you're fighting that. No. At the end of the day, you will distract yourself. And your major preoccupation, you will not be able to face it. And there's a big war. The enemy has not been defeated. At least 10 local governments in Borno North, a lot of them people can't go to. They can't go to. If the local government headquarters, in some cases just the local government headquarters are safe. And we're having a situation in which Gudumbali, the local government headquarters of Uzamala, is now unsafe. Many of those people have fled to Maiduguri. So the army should busy itself with dispatching this dangerous enemy, so that our people can live in peace. They should not distract themselves with war of war to UNICEF and the rest of them. So this is how I feel.
Let's end this on this very robust note now. I must thank and appreciate Babajide Wale and Chris now for your insights on the program today, and of course, as usual, and that's it on.
To tell the viewers that I'm going on vacation.
Oh dear! Oh dear! I was still. I had to even digest that before, but now you have preempted me. Yes, indeed, Babajide.
I wasn't sure you would say that.
They don't see you again.
And that would be the only reason why some people wow, where of course now your admirers. We wish you all the best. Well deserved break. Enjoy yourself. Now we hope to see you in the new year to enjoy. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us again. Please keep a date with us tomorrow. Our feedback channel is journalist Hangout at tvcnews.tv. Of course, keep a date with us. We will continue to run this all through the week and even beyond. I'm Kemi Foladeyemo. Bye for now. God bless Nigeria.